African women have been called a powerful, untapped economic force. And Africa's Aspiration 6 of Agenda 2063 emphasises the need to include African women in all aspects of the continent's development in order to achieve our goal for gender equality and parity by strengthening the role of women in all spheres of life: political, economic and social, as well as eliminating all forms of discrimination and violence against women and girls. The African Union recognises that gender equality is a fundamental human right and an integral part of regional integration, economic growth and social development, and that Africa will only achieve the ambitions laid out in Agenda 2063 if the lot of girls and women on the continent is attended to. This is not only stated as a mandate of the Union in the Constitutive Act, but reinforced in the Solemn Declaration on Gender Equality in Africa and several human rights treaties, such as the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the Rights of Women in Africa, which requires African countries to combat all forms of discrimination against women through appropriate legislative measures, and the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. The voice of African women is represented as the highest level of the African Union, with the issues of women being placed at the forefront within the office of the chairperson of the African Union Commission, through the Women, Gender and Development Directorate, which is the department at the forefront of leading, guiding and advocating for the inclusion of women and girls in all spheres of African society. The Directorate implements its activities through two divisions: the Gender Policy and Development Division and the Gender Coordination and Outreach Division. Through these divisions, the department focuses on issues affecting women such as poverty reduction, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, agriculture and food security, women's health, maternal mortality and HIV/AIDS, education, science and technology, impact of environment and climate change, peace and security, violence against women, governance and legal protection, financial inclusion, advocating for youth, and placing women in decision-making positions in both private and public sector.
We are responsible for integrating gender equality and women's empowerment in all the work of the Union, and in particular the African Union as an organ, but also other organs like the Pan-African Parliament, the Court, and all the organs. And of course, working with the RECs, which is very critical because the RECs are somewhere strategically placed in between the Union and its citizens. And of course, we cannot leave out member states, because that's where a lot of issues concerning women's empowerment and gender equality are taking place, and that's where change, is particularly required. Over the years, we have seen a lot of progress being made in the promulgation of laws, development of policies that promote women's rights or gender equality and women's empowerment. We have very progressive and comprehensive and really groundbreaking pieces of laws, but there's still a huge deficit between promulgation and implementation. And this is where we come in again as the Women, Gender and Development Directorate. We have also seen over the years achievement in the institutions, governmental institutions, whose mandates are to protect and to promote women's rights and gender equality and women's empowerment. We have seen, for example, a number of ministries who are mandated specifically to work on women's issues or gender issues. We have seen the establishment of specific national human rights institutions like gender commissions. We have a few of them in a number of African Union member states, like in Uganda, we have in South Africa and many others. It is very important for us to speak, to make a call to the 13 member states that have not ratified Maputo Protocol to do so in this year, 2020. And this is important because in 2010, when member states declared 2010 to 2020 as the African Women's Decade and focusing much more on grassroots development, they committed that by 2020 there will be universal ratification, universal implementation, and universal domestication of Maputo Protocol. So we'll really look forward to seeing many more member states coming into the party and ratifying Maputo Protocol, and those who have ratified actually taking a step further and domesticating Maputo Protocol through their courts, through legislation, and then implementing Maputo Protocol as well, so the women and the young girls in the continent are able to benefit.
The activities of the African Union related to promoting the rights of women and girls are anchored in the African Union Strategy for Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment. The strategy focuses on 6 key pillars: women's economic empowerment and sustainable development, which are key to promoting growth, prosperity, and sustainability; social justice, protection, and women's rights, recognizing that women's rights are human rights spanning all spheres: social, political, legal, and economic. Leadership and governance. Good governance demands that there is equal and effective participation by women. Gender management systems. Supporting women by providing access to and investing in financial and technical resources, amongst others. Women, peace and security. Ensuring women's perspectives are included on issues of peace, such as prevention, protection, and promotion. Media and information, communication and technology. Giving women a voice in Africa, media, and access to technology for knowledge. The Fund for African Women is one of the key mechanisms put in place by the African Union to address the issues of economic empowerment and financial inclusion. It provides grants to AU member states, the regional economic communities, and civil society organizations to advance the African Union's gender agenda. The Fund for African Women supports small and community-based women's organizations in Africa and focuses its activities around 5 key goals: mobilizing financial resources to support development programs and projects for women, support women's initiatives to fight poverty, close the gender gap, and halt marginalization of women. Share experiences and best practices on economic, political, and social empowerment of women. Facilitate the dissemination of information on activities led by African women. Strengthen the capacities of African women in leadership, management, and entrepreneurship.
We really, as the Gender Directorate, we really look forward to working much more, in the coming years. And of course, that's what we are doing even now with other organs of the AU, so that gender parity also percolates throughout the Union. The project itself is to make sure that by 2025, the AUC and the organs of the AUC have achieved gender parity. We emphasize the issue of financial inclusion, economic inclusion, that it is now time that the women are now leading in the economy of the continent. And we are saying, let's move beyond micro. All the time we've been giving women 10,000, 5,000, and so on. As Her Excellency Madam Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma said, that there is nothing micro about women. And what it means is that we should now talk about big business, where women are running and owning, not only working for big companies, but that they own the companies themselves, that they're able to mobilize big monies for the continent. And we also launched the African Women's Leadership Fund, which will actually assist in that regard, where we will see where we are empowering women fund managers in all these banking institutions. We are giving them money to be able to give more money to the women entrepreneurs especially, and also the startups of women.
In its role to address the issues affecting women, the department is actively involved in other key initiatives, such as the African Union campaign to end violence against women, and was also instrumental in the creation of the African Union International Centre for Girls and Women's Education in Africa, which is an institution overseen by the Human Resources, Science and Technology Department. The work of WGDD is key in ensuring women and girls are provided with the opportunities to be inspired to achieve the best out of life by changing mindsets that hold them back, investing in them, and taking appropriate measures to ensure they are not abandoned, stigmatized, discriminated against, and excluded from participation in communal policy making. Find out more about Aspiration 6 of Agenda 2063 and the work of the African Union in promoting the agenda for African women and girls by visiting www.au.int.